Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Everyday Ecom Podcast. I am joined with Kevin today. How's it going, my friend?
Good. Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Awesome, wonderful. Thanks for jumping on. Um, I would love to start with a little background about yourself, how you got into this crazy world of e-commerce. Would love your story.
Sure. So I was working at a friend of mine's insurance agency many moons ago. They were going through rocket ship growth, and at the time I was like, well, if I'm going to work this hard, I want it to be for my own dreams. And so I stumbled on, at the time there was a guy named Scott Volker. He's still around, still a good guy. But he had a podcast at the time was focused on selling on Amazon. And I decided I was going to listen and really kind of dive into that. And this was 2015. I took a season's worth of earnings as a high school football official. So, black and white striped shirt, throwing a yellow flag at teenagers and whistling at them, basically, with a whistle to say place the bet and penalty and all that fun stuff. But anyway, I took a season's worth of earnings doing that to put into my first product. Ended up leaving my job about 3 years later. I started an educational company called Maximizing eCommerce, and I actually was recently sold, or was acquired, I should say, by a company called My Amazon Guy, which is a large agency in the Amazon space. And so I both, or I've probably too many hats on right now in the e-com world. So I a seller myself, still selling products that I've been selling since for about 7 years now. I have still hold virtual events and educational things for the e-commerce world. And then also I'm the vice president of marketing at My Amazon Guy. So I probably have too many hats in this world, but
Sweet. Well,
it's fun. So I get to be a little protective of my time sometimes.
yeah. Well, congratulations on the acquisition. I know that's a lot of us starting in this game. We see the end goal of companies being acquired. When I first started, I didn't even know that was a thing. But then when you see it and you see your network that happening to it, you're like, wow, this is amazing. I want to scale and grow and be profitable so that we can have a bigger multiple. So I know that's on the digital educational side, but still a huge feat. So
Well,
congrats on
it kind of becomes a compliment when someone's like, hey, I'm willing to pay money for your skills, not just your skills, but also for
the equity, what you
stake
built.
in what you've done.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, I didn't think anyone would, but come to realize, this is a growing space we're in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess maybe segueing from that, I'd be curious, what would you say is the mission or the vision of your life slash business now? I know you mentioned many hats, you have hands full in different things. It sounds like it's still in ecom, but what's like the vision driving you today?
Yeah. So one of the things that attracted me to My Amazon Guy, because there's a lot of places that if they said, hey, I don't want to acquire you, I would probably have said thanks, but no thanks. One of the things that attracted me to Stephen Pope's company. Stephen Pope's the founder of My Amazon Guy, and he's built quite the empire, like just in the last 4 years. So like I know that there's some really successful agencies in the e-commerce and Amazon world, and he's like next level. So he has built his company was like 334 on around that number on the Inc. 5,000 list of fastest growing companies in America. And one of the things that really wanted me to learn more from My Amazon Guy is I think if you ever follow Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad, one of the things he talks about is the cash flow quadrant of employee, self-employed, business owner, and investor. And so it's kind of like, we're taught as growing up, here's how you become an employee. you know, you go to school, you get the education, get whatever credentials, apply for a job, network, you do whatever to climb the ladder. And then some of us get very attracted to this idea of let's do something a little alternative to that, like e-commerce. And that is really self-important, even though we might not be trading our actual dollars or dollars for time. In essence, we are the machine. Like if we're not there, it's hard for the machine to work without us, which is really the case in most businesses in general, even bigger businesses. But it's really kind of that way. We've kind of given ourselves a job, and it was like, in the 4 years I spent without any W-2 employment, I was really thinking to myself, okay, what can I do to really level up and get to that business owner space long term? And so that was one of the things that I was super excited about. So to answer your question about where do I want to be when I grow up, basically, it's more in the business owner seat, creating something that is less of me pushing buttons or me saying to someone, hey, you go push this button, and then it's more the process.
Sure.
A business that's more of a process and less of
Sure.
me being the one firing off the cylinders.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. And that's I think iconic quadrant that I think naturally everyone goes through. Now, you mentioned you still have the Amazon products for sale, and that occupies some of your time. Is there an end goal on that end to convert that into an operation where it's system based, running by itself, and scaling?
Yes. So some of it is, while I have that experience in my Amazon guide, I was kind of think like, what can I translate into this business? What can I translate into maximizing e-commerce business? You know, what are some of those mindsets of basically, you know, build a plane as you're flying it type of situation? And like right now, I am sitting in what looks like, if people are watching this, the video, it looks like I'm in the bedroom, but I'm actually in my office, and right through a window that's in front of me that it's off camera, is my warehouse. So my warehouse door is just about 10 feet that way. And so I have a small warehouse where I have decided to take on some of the, I don't want to call it manufacturing, but some of the customization prep to make one product into, let's say, 100 SKUs. And so I have kind of a, we'll call it a giftable product. So it's not seasonal necessarily, but the season for me is Q4. And so every year I'm trying to think like, okay, how do I ramp up more for the following Q4 and better systematize it so it's less of me involved?
Sure. And that's very similar to my setup too. I'm looking at my warehouse across our window. But we operate a 3PL on the side. My partner just logged in, actually dapped me up.
Okay.
So we operate a 3PL as well. So my ecom products, I funnel through our 3PL, and then we take on clients. We have some agencies, Trosio being one of the larger aggregators that we work with. They have obviously multiple warehouses, but we're one of their West Coast distributions. I found having employees and getting them within that process of, okay, we have 100 tasks today. How do I get a correct flow and process where we can have a software, we're using ClickUp to kind of have all of our tasks there, and it's assigned to specific people, and it gets checked off, and it keeps the flow running. But I'm curious, how are employees and that work environment for you at the warehouse level? Because it gets challenging sometimes. Like this Monday, we had 4 of our guys out, and it's like, okay, Monday, heavy day, all the orders are flowing. Like, how do we keep the train running? I wonder if you have any experiences around that, how you manage warehouse environment.
Yeah, it's a good question. So I probably have a much smaller warehouse environment than you do. So I had just one guy working in the warehouse and he recently moved away. So I'm in between positions and I've kind of said I'm going to take a step back before I just throw someone into it. Because before the process was basically like, hey, here's what I need to ship into Amazon. So for me, most of the orders get shipped into Amazon fulfillment centers and then Amazon fulfills it. And so usually it was me using some tools that I use for forecasting demand on Amazon saying, okay, here's what we need to make. My next person, I want to have more stuff systematized that they, when they come in, maybe for the week, I just say, here's your assignment for the week. By the end of the week, please prepare these items and send it in. Because before there was me creating ship or me having a virtual assistant somewhere else creating ship in Amazon's ecosystem, and then me printing out labels. And so I started thinking about where are all the touch points that I'm touching that I don't necessarily need to touch. And so how do I systematize that? So I've really challenged myself and I don't have a good answer on what that actually looks like. I kind of have a vision, but I'm not there yet. But I'm glad you asked that question because that kind of forces me to really think on that more. So
I love it.
Thank you.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I guess going from there, based on your experience in selling, continually selling in the education space, I'm sure dabbling with software agencies, what would you say is maybe the foundational tips, maybe 3 to 5 tips that every Amazon seller needs to do in order to find some success on the platform? What would be those nuggets, value adds?
Yeah, good question. And I think the biggest tip more than anything, I think, is when I started in 2015, 16, there was a handful of levers you could pull. Amazon keeps giving us more levers, which is good. And there's all this like, oh, you could do this, you could do this. There's this new report that gives this data. And it's all great, but we also have to take the standpoint of you can do any of it, but you can't do all of it, at least not well. And so sometimes you have to decide what are those core things that I can do that will move the effort. And there's a gentleman, Sumner Hobart, I think he's the one that made this statement. It stuck with me for about the last year of return on effort. So for every hour you or someone on your team puts into something, because there's limited hours to some point. And so what is the potential return on the back end? Not how excited are you, not how much is there somebody who's a guru saying this is going to be the next big thing, but legitimately, will this move the ball forward and what is the potential return on investment? So for example, maybe your product lends itself to influencer marketing. So maybe there are influencers who, have product or have audiences that would be the exact type of audience for your product. Maybe that makes sense to you. But if you're selling, I've used this example before on my desk as a calculator. Most influencers are not going to help you sell calculators. There's nothing exciting about it. It is very utilitarian. It serves an exact need people have, but it's not going to be like that exciting thing. Or, you probably can't send Google search traffic to it. Now, if you have supplements, exercise equipment, something in that fitness niche, for example, you probably do have influencers that could help you market your product. But also, what are the potential sales versus running better ad campaigns on Amazon or expanding into Amazon Canada or something like that? So you got to look at what is it, not just how exciting is it, how sexy is it, but what is it going to get you the best results?
Yeah, I like that. And I guess boiling it down, knowing yourself, knowing your business, not every business fits the same mold, but really going inside, understanding, okay, who's my audience, what are the products, and what are the top things that I need to do. Maybe, yeah, like you said, influencer marketing might not work. Go to PPC, go to Google. So I do really like that. I think we can maybe expand on that for particular business owners. If you guys listening have specific questions for your product, please let us know in the comment. I'm gonna link all of your socials and email so they can connect with you if they
Sure.
have questions.
Absolutely.
I guess kind of adding to that, maybe going one level deeper, what would you say is your superpower in e-com or Amazon space where whether it's your product, someone else comes and says, hey, I need this product to grow on Amazon. How can you knock this out of the park? What would be your superpower in that way?
My superpower, and maybe it's because I came in, I used to have an event background. And so I can sometimes, especially if there's a deadline, like a hard deadline, not just like, oh, we need to do this by Friday. Why? Just because. But if there's a legit reason, like Q4 comes once a year, or we're going to have this event on this date, you know, maybe it just comes from that event background, or come heck or high water, we're going to get it done. And so I have found I work best with deadlines. And so if you're listening to this saying, I'm the type of person who works well with deadlines, my superpower, and I think really a lot of our superpowers, is getting stuff done because we have a test tomorrow at 8 o'clock and now we have to study. So
I like that.
That would be, I would say, my superpowers, forcing things through at the last minute.
I like that. And I think there's a lot of studies that show if there is a deadline, we tend to get those things done. Whereas when there isn't, it's out in the ether, and we can get lost in other crap. I want to kind of touch on 2022 as the year in ecom, kind of your experience. I know myself, we were a little flat on the ecom side and just looking for different strategies, different tactics, how to reduce costs and increase efficiency. So maybe like your experience in 2022, and then trends, things that you're seeing in 2023 that get you like super excited, where you're like, okay, there's this massive opportunity, where maybe some people are going to quit in 22, or they're having issues with margin, profitability. Kind of walk me through your mentality from 22 into 23.
Yeah, great question. So I think ultimately an e-commerce business comes down to product to sell, people to sell to. So at least in the Amazon space, it's very sexy to say, hey, here's products that can just, you know, really home run products, hit it out of the park. Here's something that's going to sell 30, 50, 100 units a day. Maybe it's better to have 100 products that sell 1 unit a day than to have one product that sells 100 units a day. If one of them gets taken down by listing, by, you know, some bot listing at Amazon, it's not gonna be the end of the world. But if you have one listing that has 100 sales a day, and that's your only product, then you're kind of up a creek without a paddle, so to speak. So I would say the thing to keep in mind is, where can you go more niche? Where can you go more niche, but then also shorten your supply cycle? And so I think that's going to be key too, is I think the lessons we all faced in 2021 about like all of a sudden take forever, you know, for supplies to arrive, getting through the port was literally national news. That if you can figure out a way to better manage your inventory flow, you're going to be better off. So I know that's not a sexy thing, but I do think better control of logistics is going to be very beneficial for people.
And yeah, I like that, and there's a lot of value in that. And do you guys produce the goods in China?
My products, for the most part, are produced in China, even if I have some US-based distributors
Customization.
send me products. Even though they're not wholesale, they're still my products, but I have
That
I've invested in
customization.
some machinery to, you know, basically, instead of I'm selling the product, I'm selling a gift to a certain type of individual, maybe.
I like it. And that goes back to niching down,
Mhm.
And yeah, because if everyone is doing the same suppliers, same products from China, not adding any real value to the final
Right.
customer, you're finding that niche in the market. I love that. Well, this has been helpful. I appreciate you. How can people connect with you? Where are you active if they have questions and kind of want to follow your journey along with this? Or even again, if they have follow-up questions specific for their business. For you.
Sure. I have a YouTube channel, youtube.com/maximizing e-commerce, all one word, maximizing with a Z for any Australians watching. Sometimes I get people like, oh, I spelled it with an S. No, it's a Z and no dashes. And then you can also go to maximizingeCommerce.com/wait, WAIT. You can sign up on the wait list for our next virtual event. And then also too, if somebody needs help with their listings and whatnot, the company I work for, myamazonguy.com as well. And feel free to reach out to me, Kevin at maximizingeCommerce.com or Kevin at myamazonguy.com. Either of them will work. Either of them will get to me. Whatever's easier to spell.
Awesome, sweet. Well, I'm gonna leave those links in the description. Hopefully you guys listening again can connect. I know everyone's business is a little different, but if there's specific questions on your product, your listing, optimizing, keyword research, you've gone through the entire life cycle of Amazon entrepreneur. So yeah, man, I appreciate you jumping on, and hopefully we can do this again and go deeper on some more topics.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it, sir. Thanks for having me.
All right, brother, take care.